Hello, Association of Presbyterian Church Educators. My name is Colin Watson, and I'm the Executive Director of the Christian Reformed Church in North America. On behalf of our churches, members, and ministries, I want to wish you my heartfelt congratulations on this, your 50th plus one anniversary. As Reformed Christians, we believe in the value of faith formation at all ages and stages of life. And we know that laying a foundation of knowledge, walking alongside people during their times of questioning, and modeling a life of continued discipleship and missional living are all important. It's been a joy to do this work alongside you, learning and growing from one another as we seek to form faith in all generations. Thank you for the work you've done to advocate for and support Christian education with congregations and individuals across North America. May God continue to bless you and Christian education as we move into the future.
Hello. I say hello. How are you? How was your afternoon? Clapping, clapping, clapping. Oh, good. I'm still Jackie Lewis. My pronouns are still she, her, hers. I'm probably going to cough, but I'm allergic, but not to you. I'm so grateful for an opportunity to talk now this afternoon about fierce love and this whole idea of our educational process, our bringing people along, our introducing people to God, our changing them from people who don't know to people who do know that they belong in the reign of God and that they are fiercely loved by God and called to fiercely love each other. So I'm going to tell you some stories. If the room wasn't so big, I'd ask you to do Q&A, but I'm going to anticipate some questions and answer them for you. Ha! When I was 7.5 years old, I got to take communion for the very first time. We who are Presbyterians let the parents vouch for the kids, which is a really cool thing. Does your child understand what they're doing? Yes. Then they can do it. Okay, cool. So my mom and dad were Baptists from Mississippi, but not Southern Baptists, just Baptists from Mississippi. And they set a table all the time for us to learn God stuff. Memorize the 10 Commandments? Check. Memorize the Beatitudes? Check. Little aphorisms from their personal canon. Mommy's favorite, a liar shall not tarry in my sight. What in the heck does tarry mean? I had no idea. Memorize the Lord's Prayer. Check. I'm so little when I memorize the Lord's Prayer, I think it's saying, hallowed be thy name. And I'm wondering, why is God's name wet? I'm just not sure. But I got it. I'm saying it out loud. Reverend Brown was a great preacher. He spoke in plain terms in the 70s and drew young people unto him with his personality. But he didn't teach me about communion. Pastor Mommy taught me about communion. Sitting next to her on the Lewis row of the church, because, you know, little small churches, you have the Lewis row, and she smells like Jergens lotion and Windsong and Ultra Sheen pomade. The African-American people will know what that's like. And Dad is a deacon, so he has got the little trays of bread and the little trays of cups coming down the aisle ready to pass them along. And when the bread comes to me, and I take a little square, my mother leans down into my ear and says, "This bread means God will always love you." Just like that sound you all made. That was my sound. And then I ate the bread. And it was that Hawaiian bread that we now use to scoop out and make those delicious dips. Who knows what I'm talking about? Man, that bread was so good and yeasty and honey sweet. And so the God will always love you and the sweetness of the bread, I promise you, I can conjure that feeling right now. Whew, it's right there, right there. And then the cup comes by. And those little cups of Welch's grape juice are a child's delight. Unless you think you're about to drink Kool-Aid, which was my first experience. So I was a little shaky. Is this Kool-Aid? What is this? But she whispered again, this cup means God will never leave you. And then though I didn't get the sweet grape Kool-Aid taste, I got the puckery Welch's grape juice taste, and I was so deeply moved between the sweet honey bread and the puckery grape juice and the God will always love you and God will never leave you. It was the beginning of a love affair between me and God, conducted, minced, matched by my mom. She died 4.5 years ago. And her dying was like another birth for me. I think that needs a couple more sentences because nobody wants their mom to die. But the conversations we were having, the midrash she was doing, the theological reflection she was doing with me in her hospital room, in the midst of the eerie blue lights and the noisy, keep you alive breathing machines, was almost like that first birthing with the bread and the cup. It was full of stares and silences and nods of recognition and hoarse talking because she had cancer. Mommy, what are you looking at? I'm looking at you. Why are you staring at me? Because you're so beautiful, and I want to memorize your face. I love you, Mom. I love you more, Jackie. You can't possibly know how much. And secret things that I wrote in the book, but might not say out loud here as much, but this feeling of her telling me that she was sorry for things that she didn't know, or things that she didn't get, or things that she didn't understand. And her telling me, blessing me, benedicting me, that I wasn't too shiny, or I wasn't too sparkly, or the things that happened to me as a child that I wish hadn't happened were not my fault. And there was this holy sending into the world that finished growing me up. Does that make sense to you? Like a severing of an umbilical cord and a pushing out of the womb of mercy. Don't y'all love the way the words womb and mercy are almost the same in the Semitic languages? She was just shifting me out into the world with this fierce love, simple love. God will always love you. God will never leave you. And even though I'm leaving you, you are loved, unbelievably loved more than you can ever ask or imagine by this holy other who will always love you exactly as you are. What if that was the Apostles' Creed, Brian? What if our life of faith, or better, our faithing of others' lives, what if the most important lesson, teaching, the thing to memorize, along with the 10 Commandments, and along with the Beatitudes, and the hallowed be thy name-ness of the Lord's Prayer that no kid understands. What if there were other kinds of texts that we made formative? We don't have to make them up because they're in there. But what if love centered our education, centered our fierce faithing of God's people in love? Now look, I didn't grow up with that faithing. I mean, God will always love you, God will never leave you, quite quickly turned into the don't no mo's. Do you all know what I mean by the don't no mo's? Or don't evers. Okay. Don't no mo, don't ever. Don't smoke, don't curse. Help me. Don't drink, don't. I can't hear you. Don't what? Don't lie. Don't have sex. Woo, that was a big one. Don't be late. Don't be slow. Don't, right? Don't be friends with Jews. What? Did you get quiet on me? Don't hang out with Muslims. Don't hang out with Catholics, because they're not really Christians. Don't play with that kid. In the name of Jesus, don't go into that house. Don't cross the tracks. Don't let that gay kid play on the playground with you. You might catch it. How did we get y'all to the don't religion? Please don't get uncomfortable. I just saw some of you shift. I mean, I'm not saying everything goes, I'm not saying that. I'm saying you can teach, we can be faithing people in the yes, or we can be faithing people in the don'ts, the don't no mo's. A yes faithing, for example, about sex, which I did not have, just to be crystal clear, because I thought I was going to go to hell and burn. Raise your hand if you're in my club. All right. Yeah, I know some of you don't want me to tell you. I see you, though. I see you. 2 weeks before my wedding. And 2 weeks before my wedding, on my birthday, we petted too far. Sorry, Kirsty. We petted too far, and we did the thing. And oh my God, I felt so guilty. I felt terrible because I was supposed to wait until the wedding, 2 weeks later. 3 months after that, I had a car accident in which I almost died, driving across the QEW in Canada. The car flipped over on its roof tires, spun around 3 times, and I almost died. But I didn't die. But about a week ago, I finally forgave myself. I'm kidding. But years of it must have been because I broke the rules that God punished me with the car accident. Am I the only person in the room that has had that crazy conflation of guilt and shame because the no was so strong in your mind from God, and you didn't get the sense that God could get past the crap you did? Now, I'm 62, I'll be 63, I'm of a certain generation. Are we teaching kids it differently now? Are we? We are? Good. So they're not walking around with a God image of a terrible tyrant who might kill the world? It's rhetorical. Are they walking around with a God image that might make them think that COVID is punishment to the Chinese people? Like New Orleans was a punishment for the gay. Are you with me? What's the God we want them to love? What's the God we want them to create? I got in trouble one time when I was on a task force talking to us, and I said, let's help children make good use of God. They did not like that. But what if what we were trying to do, was to develop the sense of a God image, a God representation, a face of God? Jim Loder would say, we're looking for the face that will never leave us. What if we were trying to curate in our young people a relationship with the God who would never leave them and always love them? That there was nothing they could do that would separate them from the love of God, Paul. That they would understand fully that they were awesomely and wonderfully made in the image of God, just exactly as they are, Psalm 139. That they would take deeply into their souls that they were created a little less than God, not angels, it says, guys, Elohim, Psalm 85. Just a little lower than God. What would happen if we really put in them, stuck in them, helped them introject a loving face of God that would be their friend that they would have in Jesus all their life through? Like a buddy, like a partner. Like they are the theologians and residents of their own lives. Can you feel what I'm saying? They are the theologians in residence of their own lives. RIE parenting. I'm reading an article in the New Yorker last week about this parenting where it's not all about attachment and you have to carry your baby around all the time, but it's more about being with the baby's sentiments, feelings. The baby's angry. You're angry. I can tell. That's why you threw my clock. Being with the baby's feelings. Watching the baby to see what it really needs, not trying to control it, make it quiet, make it conform, sit down, shut up. Imagine Christian education that is trying to be with the person's angst, anxiety, fear, foible, worry, that says this actually is the leaping point, the jumping point from how we will create curriculum materials. What are 4-year-olds afraid of? What are 7-year-olds worried about? What is a teenager who's beginning to smell, thinking about, wrestling with? So that what we're not doing is trying to squeeze people into the boxes we've already outgrown. Knowing they're going to outgrow them. But creating a more elastic, more playful, more grace-filled, more joyful, more fun container in which they come to love this God who is love. I was taught that God was love, and then I was taught that God was my third parent. And in that context, God was a disciplinarian. And if I strayed too far away from the place my parents thought I should be, they and God might disown me. So I hear you, What was the way you got that message? To be in the straight and narrow, to stay inside the boundaries, to color inside the boundaries. I love boundaries. I'm not saying don't have boundaries. I'm wondering how we teach God's bounded love without creating God in the image of the disciplinarian that scares us the most in our memory. Can I walk away from this? Can you hear me? No, I mean, can you hear me? I'm not in your classroom, so I'm not judging what you're doing. I'm inviting us to think outside of the page. I mean, even, you're not going to like this that much. Can you see me? Okay, you're not going to, dark people, stay in the light. This is a little more provocative. But if we think of our canon, our Bible, as people like you and me, and the people in our classrooms, and the people in our pews, trying to get God. What is God? Who is God? How did the sun shine that day and the rain the next day? How did the corn grow? How did the baby get born? Why is someone fertile, someone not? Why are our enemies killing us? The wrestling with human life, right? There's the wrestling with human life, which in a different time, a primitive time, an agrarian time, had a different set of questions than ours. I love the UCC people saying God is still speaking, because God is still speaking, right? When you're making your lesson plan, when I'm doing exegesis for my sermon, when I'm looking at the midrashes and the commentaries, and et cetera, and listening to Stevie Wonder and seeing if he's got a lyric that works, whatever, I do that. I mean, I'm scanning the universe. I'm back to Jim Loader now. Who knows Jim's work, right? These 5, I got a problem. I got to bring a word on target for Sunday, and I might not feel like preaching hope at all. It's Easter Sunday a few years ago, and my mom had just died, and COVID and fire, and I had nothing. I could not do Jesus Christ is risen today well. But I had enough doubt to own, and I preached the doubt, not the blessed assurance or the magical platitude that this is what I must say. I preached, I don't know today how I feel about resurrection, but I know God is present in this death. And that was just the right word for the time. Can we have space in between the words on the page? Can we have space inside the canon to imagine what wasn't said, what wasn't articulated? Can we have space enough to imagine the humanity of the Bible writers, even as much as we believe their Holy Spirit inspiration, so that we are able to be less afraid, to own where we're afraid, and our doubt, and our uncertainty? And what if we, who were the grown-ups, could dare to be vulnerable enough to express our lack of certainty and invite the people in the room with us to also exegete the text of the book and the world and their lives, so that together we are making new theology and new canon And God keeps speaking and transforms our circumstance by the not yetness of that. Yeah? What kind of fun would you have if you could do that? What kind of freedom would you have to pull in one of those banned books, Help Us Jesus, like The Bluest Eye, for example, to go alongside Psalm 139? Because Pecola Breedlove is awesomely and wonderfully made in the image of God, right? And then you'd be like, and how dare we not love all the Pecola Breedloves because God made her? And the kids in the room would be like, and so what about the ones who don't believe Jesus is the way and the truth and the life? What about the Chinese girl in the orphanage in Beijing? And you'd be like, that's a good question. And then you'd want to know how you could put maybe what kind of text you'd put next to that so that maybe that child begins to wonder if God speaks more than one language. And will we lose that child if they think God speaks more than one language? Or will their faith be deepened in the face of a God who loves everybody enough to compel them by any means necessary to get in the room with her? Them. God, I want you to talk to me, but you're too far away. Are you feeling what I'm asking about? Right? And I am not. I want our faithing to be fierce. I want our faithing to be brave, to take risks, as Ozzy said this morning. I'm reading a book written by two Jewish rabbis called Awakening, and they're talking about the narrative of, oh my goodness, really? Oh, that's just so precious. That's my dad calling. Okay. These are youngish rabbis. They're like 40-something, and they're frisky. And they're like, we're white, we're men, we have power, we have money, and we have a new idea. And their idea is, it was shocking, but they're like, you Jewish people with your tradition and your we're so terrible, and life has been so horrible, and nobody loves us, and we're just, oh my God, all the Jews are marrying all the white people that are not Jewish, and we're just gonna die on the vine type thing. They're like, that is so not true. Wow. They said you can keep having nostalgia for that story, or you can acknowledge Judaism's power and prestige and wealth, and that the world thinks we're the best religion on the planet. You can come out of the past and awaken to a new story informed by the past, is their message. I don't know, I think 5 people are gonna buy that book, because it's hard. But there's something that was resonating in my heart about us, y'all, Christians, having a new story, informed by the past story, but maybe regressing to the simpler past story, right? Because the simpler past story was God makes the world, blows the Spirit in it, loves it. The people make mistakes. There's a flood. Please don't get mad. And they tell themselves God did it because that feels better. And God keeps loving them. And then they become slaves. And then God rescues them. And then God keeps loving them. And then they're in the promised land. And they make other people slaves. And then God keeps loving them. And then God sends God's self into the world as the Son and loves them more and more and more. And they kill God, and God keeps loving them. Isn't that it in a nutshell? Yes? Did I leave out any major pieces? In the middle of all that is how do you pray Whose prayer matters the most? Does the Spirit proceed from the Son and God, or one or the other, or both? What does it mean when you take communion? Is that really the body of Christ, or is it a symbol? And if it's the Christ body, can everybody eat it? And what about that blood? And what about that cup? And let's fight whole wars around catechism and creed and doctrine. Really? Really? What if we regress to the foundational love story and we move forward from there? I'm almost out of time. I want to urge you to think about what our intention is. Is our intention to keep our institution going? Or is our intention to make the whole world the church? And by the whole world the church, I'm talking about like Howard Thurman type church, where God is everywhere. Or 1 John type church, where God is love. And those who abide in love abide in God, and God abides in them. God is love. And whoever tabernacles in love tabernacles in God, and God tabernacles in them. How about that church? Now what? Now what? What's in your wallet? I'm sorry. Just wanted to see if you were here. What's in your canon? If that's the what. What texts help us make people fall in love with God and stay in love with God? What texts make people evangelize their friends to love? I've got a thing for you. It's love. And you can have it for your family, for your kids, for your workplace. What is our intention? 593 people joined Middle Church from March 15th, 2020 to last week. 593 people. When you say you want to join Middle Church, you go to the website and you click, I want to join, and you come to a class, and we talk about how God is love. God is love, God is forgiveness, God is peace, God is love. Love makes you go heal the world. Love makes you do justice, because justice is love correcting everything that stands against love, per Dr. King, right? What's our intention? If you want your church to live, and I know you do, I want your church to love fiercely. Not timid, wimpy, prove to me you love me love. Willing to take risks kind of love. Love that understands that we are inextricably connected one to the other. And when that child is hungry, your stomach growls, no matter what color they are, and no matter who they have sex with. I want you to be the ambassadors of the fierce love gospel that says, I am a human through you. That says, all of us are one organism. And the saved ones are only saved because everybody is saved. And by saved, my fierce love gospel means know they're loved, live a life of love, don't kill people. Share your resources. Live a life of peace. I want to convert you. I want to convert you to this fiercest love of all, to own your own exegetical power, to screen text. What's love got to do with it? I want that to be your song. I want you to order your steps in love. Organize your life by love. Let love guide your feet while you run this race. I want you to believe that love is the way and the truth and the life, and that nobody gets to God but through love. But that everybody can get to God through love. So, you'll come see me sign books, and you'll argue with me at the table, and that's cool. But think about this. There's somebody sitting in your congregation that needs to break bread and hear God will always love you, and drink a cup and know that there is not anything they can do that would make God leave them. And that will save their life. Let's save some lives, my friends.